An African woman gave her last $8 to a homeless man. She had no idea he was a billionaire Arab executive. What would you do if a stranger asked you for help when you had almost nothing left yourself? This is the story of a humble African woman whose act of pure kindness changed her life forever. She had no idea that the homeless man she helped with her last $8 was actually a billionaire Arab executive in disguise. And what he did next will leave you speechless. Stay with us until the end, because this story will touch your heart in ways you won't expect. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one right to you. The sun beat down mercilessly on the crowded streets of Nairobi. Amidst the chaos of vendors shouting and buses honking, Amina moved carefully through the crowd, clutching a small brown envelope to her chest. Inside it were her last $8. Money she had scraped together by selling handmade bracelets on the roadside for weeks. It wasn't enough to pay her overdue rent, but it was enough to buy some food to stretch a few more days. Amina was tired, not just from the heat, but from life itself. At 28, she had known more hunger than comfort, more rejection than kindness. Yet, despite it all, she had never lost her gentle heart. She still smiled at strangers. She still believed in goodness. As she turned a corner near the train station, she spotted him. Sitting on the ground, his clothes torn and dusty, was a man. He looked worn down, defeated, like someone who had lost everything. His face was hidden under a dirty hood, and a crumpled cardboard sign rested beside him. Just need a little help. Anything will do. Amina slowed down. She didn't know why. Dozens of people passed him without even glancing, some even turning their faces away in disgust. She could hear their whispers. Probably a scammer. He should get a job. But Amina stood frozen, staring at the man. Something in his posture, the way his hands trembled slightly, the way he seemed to shrink under the weight of the world, spoke to her soul. She knew what it felt like to be invisible. She reached into her envelope without thinking. The crisp bills, so precious, brushed against her fingertips. Her mind screamed at her, "You need this to eat." But her heart was louder. She walked over and knelt beside him. "Hi," she said softly. The man flinched, almost as if he wasn't used to being spoken to. Slowly, he lifted his face. His eyes, dark, deep, and filled with a sorrow she couldn't comprehend, met hers. For a second, Amina forgot about everything else. Without a word, she pressed the envelope into his hand. "It's not much," she whispered, her voice cracking. "But maybe it can help." The man stared at her, completely silent. His hands clutched the envelope tightly, as if it was a lifeline thrown into the storm. Amina gave him a small smile, the kind that tried to hide the fear gnawing at her stomach. Then she stood up and walked away, ignoring the gnawing hunger in her own belly, ignoring the voice inside her that called her foolish. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen the man slowly rise to his feet, his hood falling back to reveal features too clean, too sharp for someone truly broken. His eyes followed her as she disappeared into the crowd. That night, Amina returned to the small room she rented in the slums, a place barely big enough for her thin mattress and a cracked window. She curled up on the floor, stomach empty, but her heart strangely full. She had no idea that the man she helped was not who he seemed. She had no idea that in a few short days, everything she knew about her life would be turned upside down, because the billionaire Arab executive she had saved with her last act of kindness was already planning his next move. And it would change Amina's destiny forever. The next morning, the city was already buzzing before the sun had fully risen. Amina woke up to the familiar ache of hunger gnawing at her insides. She splashed water on her face, tied her hair back into a simple bun, and stepped out into the crowded streets once more. Her life, she thought, would continue as it always had, one slow, weary step at a time. But something strange happened. As she passed the corner where the homeless man had been the day before, she noticed he was gone. No cardboard sign, no traces of him at all. Just an empty sidewalk stained with old rain and dust. A flicker of worry crossed her heart. Had he found shelter? Had he eaten? She shook her head. There was nothing more she could do. She turned away, unaware that at that very moment, her life was under quiet observation. Hidden a few feet away, inside a sleek black car with tinted windows, the man she had helped, or rather, the man who had pretended to need her help, watched her carefully. Dressed in an elegant tailored suit now, his appearance was a sharp contrast to the broken figure he had presented the day before. His name was Khalid Al-Mansour. A billionaire executive from Dubai, Khalid was known not just for his wealth, but for his unconventional ways of finding people worthy of his trust. Years of betrayal by those closest to him had left Khalid skeptical, cold, and incredibly cautious. Now, here in Nairobi, on a personal mission to find a project leader for his new humanitarian initiative, he had devised a test of heart, not of resume or connections, and Amina had passed it. Khalid watched as she disappeared down the road, her shoulders hunched slightly against the morning chill. He leaned back in his seat, deep in thought. "She gave me her last $8, he said quietly to himself, almost in disbelief. No hesitation, no expectation. He made a decision then, swift and irreversible. Meanwhile, Amina spent the day searching desperately for small jobs. Cleaning, selling jewelry, anything she could find. But luck was cruel that day. By evening, her pockets were as empty as her stomach. As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, she wandered aimlessly toward the old city center. That's when she saw it. An elegant new bakery had opened. the kind of place she usually avoided, because even the smell of fresh bread felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. But something compelled her to stop and stare at the display window. Rows of pastries, golden and gleaming under warm lights. She pressed her hand against the glass without realizing. "Would you like to come in?" A deep, accented voice startled her. She turned, and there he was. No longer dressed in rags, the man she had helped now stood before her in a crisp suit that seemed more expensive than everything she had ever owned in her life. His dark hair was neatly combed back, his shoes gleamed, and his eyes, those same sorrowful eyes, now held something else, purpose. Amina stumbled back in confusion. I think you have the wrong person," she stammered. He smiled gently. "No, I have exactly the right person." She opened her mouth to protest, but he was already stepping forward, pulling the bakery door open and gesturing for her to enter. "I owe you more than you can imagine," he said. "Please, let me buy you a meal." Amina hesitated. Every instinct in her screamed caution. Good things never happened to her. Why would a man like him even notice someone like her? But her stomach growled loudly, betraying her pride. Blushing, she lowered her head and stepped inside. The warm smell of bread and sugar wrapped around her like a blanket. A friendly baker behind the counter beamed at her as Khalid ordered an extravagant spread, pastries, sandwiches, hot tea, as if money were no object. As they sat at a small table, Amina dared to glance at him. "Who are you?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Khalid smiled, but it was a sad smile, tinged with the weight of 1,000 hidden stories. "Someone who has been searching for a heart like yours for a very long time," he said. Before Amina could respond, Khalid reached into his coat pocket and placed a sleek black envelope on the table between them. Inside it was an offer, one that would either save her life or complicate it beyond anything she had ever imagined. Amina stared at the black envelope on the table as if it might explode. Everything inside her screamed to be cautious. She had grown up hearing countless stories of scams, of people who promised the world and left others worse off than before. Yet there was something about this man, about Khalid, that made her heart hesitate. His eyes, though commanding and full of authority, carried a sadness that felt too real to be faked. "Go ahead," Khalid said softly, pushing the envelope closer to her. "It's yours." Her trembling fingers brushed against the envelope's smooth surface. Slowly, she opened it and gasped. Inside was a letter, printed on heavy, expensive paper, with a gold-embossed crest she didn't recognize. Alongside it, there was a check made out to her name, for a sum so large she had to blink twice to make sure she wasn't imagining it. $50,000. Her throat tightened. Her hands shook. This must be a mistake," she whispered, sliding the envelope back toward him. "I can't accept this. I didn't do anything to deserve—" "You did," Khalid interrupted gently, his voice steady. "You showed me that kindness still exists without expectation. You gave when you had nothing to spare. That kind of heart is priceless." Amina felt the sting of tears pressing against her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. "Take it," he insisted, a slight smile curling at the corners of his mouth. "And if you'll allow me, there's something else I'd like to offer you." Amina swallowed hard, feeling completely out of her depth. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. Khalid leaned in, his tone turning serious. "I'm building something here in Nairobi," he said. "A foundation for women like you, hard-working, honest, overlooked. I want you to help me run it. I need someone real, someone I can trust." She stared at him, stunned. "You mean, like a job?" He chuckled softly. "More than a job. A new life." The bakery, the crowds outside, the entire noisy city seemed to fade into silence. Amina's heart raced. Opportunities like this didn't happen to people like her. They simply didn't. And yet, here he was, offering it. "But why me?" she asked, her voice breaking with disbelief. "I'm nobody. I have no degree. I have no experience leading anything. You have the only qualification that matters," Khalid said. "Integrity." For a long moment, Amina said nothing. She stared down at the check again, feeling the weight of a future she had never dared to dream about pressing down on her chest. Could she really trust him? Could she risk what little she had left on the possibility that this was real? I need to think," she said finally, her voice trembling. Khalid nodded, understanding. "Of course. Take your time. I'll be at the Grand Marriott Hotel for the next 2 days. If you decide yes, come find me." He rose from the table, adjusted the cuff of his suit jacket, and gave her a look that felt almost hopeful. "One more thing," he added before leaving. "No matter what you decide, never stop believing that your kindness matters. The world needs it more than you can imagine." With that, he was gone, swallowed by the night, leaving Amina sitting alone at the small table, the envelope heavy in her lap and a storm of emotions raging inside her. She clutched the check to her chest, tears spilling freely now. For the first time in years, hope felt real, terrifyingly real. But just as she began to dream of what her life could become, a shadow fell across her table. A tall, rough-looking man in a wrinkled jacket and worn boots loomed over her, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the envelope in her hands. "Well, well," he sneered, voice dripping with malice. "Looks like someone just got lucky." Amina's blood ran cold. She knew him. He was someone from her past, someone who didn't believe in second chances. And now he wanted a piece of her miracle. Amina's heart pounded violently against her ribs. She tightened her grip on the envelope as she stared at the man in front of her. His name was Malik. Years ago, before life had forced her onto the streets to sell bracelets, Malik had been a petty criminal, prowling the neighborhoods looking for anyone weaker to exploit. She had seen him shake down old shopkeepers, pick fights with vendors, and extort struggling women who had no one to protect them. And now, his hungry eyes were locked on her. "Where'd you get that, Amina?" he said, leaning closer, his breath sour and heavy. "Who'd you scam to get your hands on something like that?" "I didn't scam anyone," she said, her voice shaking. "It's none of your business." Malik laughed, a low, ugly sound that turned the heads of a few passers-by. Amina glanced around desperately, but no one intervened. In this part of town, people knew better than to get involved with Malik. "You know how this works," he said, lowering his voice into a threatening growl. "You walk around here flashing something like that, you gotta pay a tax. My tax." Amina's throat tightened. Fear clawed at her, but anger flared just beneath it. No, not this time. Not when she was finally so close to something better. She stepped back, clutching the envelope to her chest. "I'm not giving you anything," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Leave me alone, Malik." His face darkened. "You think you're too good now, just because some rich fool gave you a handout?" He took a step closer. Amina's back hit the bakery wall. She searched for a way out, but Malik was blocking her only escape route. Inside the bakery, the friendly baker watched nervously, clearly unsure if he should intervene. Other people hurried by on the sidewalk, their eyes sliding away from the confrontation. Amina's mind raced. She could scream. She could run. She could... "Is there a problem here?" The voice was calm, sharp, and unfamiliar. Both Amina and Malik turned to see a tall man in a dark coat step between them. His face was stern, professional, and there was something unmistakably authoritative about him. He flashed a badge. "Police." Malik froze. "No, officer," Malik said quickly, stepping back. "Just a little misunderstanding with an old friend." The officer didn't even blink. "I suggest you walk away." With one last glare at Amina, Malik melted into the crowd and disappeared. The officer turned to her, his expression softening. "Are you all right, miss?" Amina nodded shakily. "Thank you. Thank you so much." He nodded, gave her a kind smile, and then disappeared just as quickly as he had come. Amina stood there for a moment, shaken, clutching the envelope so tightly it crinkled under her fingers. She knew Malik. He wouldn't give up that easily. She had to leave. Fast. That night, Amina packed the few belongings she owned into a torn backpack. Every few minutes, she glanced nervously out the cracked window of her tiny room, half expecting Malik to appear. She barely slept, her mind racing. The check, the offer, Khalid's words, She had dreamed for so long about a way out, about something, anything, better than this endless cycle of fear and hunger. And now, the door was open. All she had to do was step through it. But stepping through meant trusting a stranger. It meant risking everything she had left. By dawn, her decision was made. She stuffed the black envelope into her bag, pulled a tattered scarf over her hair, and slipped quietly into the streets. As the city woke around her, Amina made her way toward the Grand Marriott Hotel. Each step was a battle against her doubts. What if it's all a trick? What if he changes his mind? What if Malik finds me first? But still, she kept walking. Hope, after all, was louder than fear tonight. Finally, after what felt like hours, the gleaming glass towers of the hotel rose before her. She paused across the street, heart hammering, staring up at the glittering windows. This was a world she had never even dared to dream about. A world of silk suits, marble floors, golden chandeliers. And she, with her worn shoes, her backpack full of nothing, was about to walk into it. Taking a deep breath, Amina crossed the street. She pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The air was cool, scented faintly with jasmine and leather. Elegant guests in designer clothes floated through the lobby like a dream. For a moment, she felt invisible again, small and out of place. But she straightened her shoulders and approached the front desk. "I'm here to see Mr. Khalid Al-Mansour," she said, her voice trembling slightly. The woman behind the desk gave her a once-over, disapproving, curious, and then picked up the phone. Moments later, a tall man in a dark suit approached. "We've been expecting you," he said. Amina blinked. Expecting me? Before she could ask anything more, the man gestured toward a private elevator. "Come with me. Mr. Al-Mansour is waiting." As the elevator doors slid closed behind her, Amina had no idea that the meeting ahead would test her courage more than anything she had ever faced. The elevator glided silently upward, each passing floor increasing the weight, pressing down on Amina's chest. She clutched the strap of her backpack tightly, feeling painfully aware of how out of place she looked. Her reflection in the polished metal doors showed a tired young woman with worn shoes, cheap clothes, and wide, fearful eyes. "What am I doing here?" she thought desperately. "This must be a mistake. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he'll laugh at me." The elevator chimed softly, and the doors opened. Standing there, dressed in another impeccably tailored suit, was Khalid Al-Mansour. He smiled, a real warm smile this time, and extended his hand. "Welcome, Amina," he said. His suite was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the space in golden morning light, offering a panoramic view of the sprawling city below. Elegant furniture, soft Persian rugs, and golden accents made the room feel more like a palace than a hotel. Amina stepped in hesitantly, her heart hammering. "Please," Khalid gestured to a chair by a low marble table. Sit. You must be exhausted." She obeyed, her movements stiff and awkward. Khalid sat across from her, studying her with eyes that seemed to see deeper than the surface. "You must be wondering why you're really here," he said gently. Amina nodded, unable to find her voice. Khalid leaned forward, folding his hands together. "I wasn't entirely honest with you," he admitted. "The truth is, I wasn't just looking for someone to help me run a project." Amina's stomach twisted. Here it comes, she thought. The part where the dream crumbles. But Khalid continued, his voice steady. "I was looking for someone I could invest in. Someone who could become the face, the soul of something bigger. Amina, I want you to lead a foundation I'm building, one focused entirely on lifting women out of poverty across Africa. I want someone who understands real hardship, someone who can inspire trust, because she has lived it." Amina blinked, her mind spinning. You want me?" she whispered, barely able to believe the words. "Yes," Khalid said simply. "With full training, full support, and a salary that will allow you to live the life you deserve." He slid another envelope across the table, this one heavier, thicker. Inside, Amina found a contract offering her a starting salary she had only ever heard about in movies. Enough to move out of the slums, enough to build a real future. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice breaking. Khalid smiled sadly. "Because when I was young," he said quietly, "someone once gave me a second chance when I had nothing. They believed in me when no one else did. Without that kindness, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I've been looking for someone who deserves that same belief. And yesterday, you found me when I was invisible. You didn't hesitate. You saw a human being, not a burden." Amina covered her mouth with her hands, overwhelmed by emotion. "But I'm nobody," she whispered. "You are everything that matters," Khalid said firmly. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Amina's mind raced with images, her past struggles, the hunger, the loneliness, the small victories she had fought so hard for. And now, standing before her, was the door she had dreamed of for so long. Finally, she looked up, tears shining in her eyes. "I want to do it," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "I want to help. I want to make a difference." Khalid's smile widened, and for the first time, she saw a hint of relief in his eyes. "Then welcome to the beginning of your new life, Amina." Just as they shook hands, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Khalid's body tensed immediately. Amina turned, her heart sinking. Standing in the doorway was the last person she wanted to see, Malik. He wasn't alone. Two rough-looking men flanked him, and their eyes locked onto Amina like wolves spotting prey. "I told you," Malik snarled. Nobody leaves me behind. Khalid rose from his chair, his face hardening into a mask of calm authority. But Amina knew, deep in her soul, that things were about to get much worse before they got better. Malik took a step forward into the room, his men closing in behind him. "You thought you could just disappear, Amina?" he growled, his voice dripping with anger. "You owe me." Amina's body shook, but she didn't move. Khalid calmly placed himself between her and Malik. "You need to leave," Khalid said, his voice low but commanding. Malik laughed darkly. "And who's going to stop me?" Without a word, Khalid nodded toward the hallway. From behind him, two silent, muscular men in suits appeared, Khalid's private security. Swiftly, and without a struggle, they grabbed Malik and his thugs, dragging them back toward the elevators as Malik shouted threats that echoed down the corridor. Amina stood frozen, breathing hard. Khalid turned to her, his expression softening. "You are safe now," he said. "And you never have to face men like that alone again." Tears filled Amina's eyes as the realization washed over her. She was no longer powerless. She had been seen, chosen, protected. And for the first time in her life, the future was wide open. Weeks later, Amina stood at the podium in a beautiful conference hall, dressed in a flowing suit she never could have dreamed of owning. Behind her, a massive banner read, "The Al-Mansour Foundation, changing lives, one woman at a time." Khalid watched proudly from the front row as Amina spoke, her voice strong and full of purpose. "I once believed that kindness was a weakness," she said, her voice steady. "But I know now. Kindness is the greatest strength. It transforms lives. It saved mine." The crowd erupted into applause. As she stepped down from the stage, Khalid met her with a smile. "You changed your world," he said softly. "No," Amina replied, tears shining in her eyes. "We changed it together." And with that, she walked forward into a life she had once thought was impossible, carrying a heart that would never again be invisible. If this story inspired you, remember, even the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who believes in second chances and the power of hope.